Jets, Jets. New York snaps a 5-game losing streak with a, quite frankly, dominant second half as Aaron Rodgers and the boys beat the Texans 21-13 after getting shut out 7-0 in the first half. Should have been 7-7 if Malachi Corley doesn't pull the old classic, I'm going to drop the ball before I cross the goal line play, and then it trickles out of the end zone for a touchback. How do players keep doing that? They show mental resolve, and on their only 3 possessions of the second half, 3 straight touchdowns, 21 straight points for New York. Quite frankly, it was it's kind of a dominant performance if we're being completely honest. So big win for Gang Green. We're going to talk about all of it here on Verts. Thank you guys so much for helping us cross 4,300 subscribers. Next mini milestone is 4,400. So please, if you'd hit that subscribe button, it's actually my birthday tomorrow. So, hey, if you want to wish me a birthday, I'm turning the big 3-1. Is 31 the most irrelevant birthday of all time, by the way? Shout it out in the comments below, because I feel like up until 30, they all feel somewhat significant. Now it's like 31. Here's my theory on it, and then we'll talk some football. Once you turn 30, you're 30 until you're 40. And then when you turn 40, you're 40 until you're 50. Like every 10 years is the only birthday that matters. But if you want to wish me a happy birthday, just subscribe. That would be an awesome birthday present. So appreciate you guys very, very much. All right, Jets 21, Texans 13. Vintage Aaron Rodgers. I mean, listen, he could still spin the rock. He's clearly not what he was. It comes and goes. It's very inconsistent. But he looked terrible. And I do mean terrible in the first half. I think he had thrown for 32 yards or something like that. But he just came out spinning that pill in the second half and just completely dominated the game. Got the quick game going. They started to play with some tempo. Garrett Wilson, we'll talk about in a second, had a couple of big-time touchdown catches. Davante Adams scored his first touchdown as a Jet. And it kind of felt like that second half from Rodgers was, you know what? If we're going to lose our 6th in a row, if we're going to fall to 2-7, we're going to do it on my terms, and I'm going to go down swinging. And he swung, and he connected a lot. Finished with 211 and 3 touchdowns, no turnovers. And again, he had 32 yards in the first half. So what's that? About $180 in the second half. He was really good. Do I trust this to continue week after week, quarter after quarter? I have no idea. I'd probably bet against it because I've watched most of the Jets games this year because they're in prime time all the time, and they've looked pretty bad. But they kind of kicked the Texans' ass in the second half. I mean, Houston could not slow them down. They were running the ball well. Breece Hall, 5 yards a pop, 15 carries, 74 yards. And a lot of this damage in the second half where they were just going straight up and down the field on D'Amico Ryan's defense, which has been a pretty solid unit this year. I get Will Anderson wasn't out there, but pretty dominant performance in that second half. And, you know, they were talking about on the broadcast, Herb Street and Al Michaels were saying they spoke to Rodgers either yesterday or before the game today, and they said, look, the guy's very convincing. He was telling us if we could just win this game tonight, we could make a run and maybe win out. And we thought he was crazy, but then by the end of the conversation, he's kind of convinced us. And look, we'll get to the Texans in a sec, but I'll say this, and look, I am in the camp that this Jets thing has been a joke. But for the second half tonight, it looks pretty damn good. And the defense finally played good without Robert Saleh for the first time. I'll say this for the Jets. Schedule coming up is manageable. At Arizona next week, not easy, and I don't think any game is considered easy for the Jets, but it's not like that's a crazy tough game. Colts at home, Joe Flacco, Aaron Rodgers. It's got to be one of the oldest QB combinations of all time. That's another primetime game in a couple of weeks. Seattle at home, cross-country flight. That benefits the Jets. At the Dolphins, at the Jags. Rams at home, at Bills will be tough. Dolphins at home. That's it. Other than at the Bills, you could see a scenario where they have a chance to win any of those other games. Now, again, would I pick it? No. This team's 3-6. I'm not going to completely overreact to one half of football, but for one half of football against a good, although I don't think great Texans team, we'll talk about them in a second, it looked pretty damn good. And this is what Jets fans have been hoping for. And, I'm sure they're going to grasp onto that hope. And I would too if I was a Jets fan. But you got to see it week after week, quarter after quarter, game after game. So we'll see. Their margin for error is thin. I will say this, though. The middle of the AFC is pretty weak. I mean, Denver with Bo Nix is in a playoff spot right now. That's what's so frustrating as you're a Jets fan. You lost to Denver and Bo Nix 10-9, in which a game Nix threw for 60 yards. If you would have just won that game, I'm not even talking about the Patriots loss last week, just the Denver game, you'd be 4-5, and you'd be like, okay, as bad as this has been, okay, we're right in the thick of it. But at 3-6, your margin for error is very slim. But a must-have-it win tonight. They got it. They deserve credit. And my God, Garrett Wilson, it's been a little hit and miss with him and Rodgers this year, but I don't think I've ever seen a receiver have two one-handed catches in one game. The first one was on like a little 15-yard crossing route. Jalen Petrie kind of went for the interception, and Rodgers threw it far enough out in the front where Wilson could kind of stick his arm full extension out, palms it with one hand, brings it in, and makes the guy miss and scores a touchdown on a yard after the catch. And then the second one was on a 3rd and 19 after Rodgers had scrambled for a first down inside the 5. It came back on a holding call. Instead of just running a draw or a short screen or something like that, he just threw a one-on-one jump ball to Wilson, and it was Odell Beckham Jr.-esque. And it's been 10 years since his one-handed touchdown against the Cowboys, and Wilson high points it with one hand, comes down with it, first foot down, and then the shin of the same leg came down before the knee. Shin equals 2 feet, so they overturned it for a touchdown. I wouldn't quite call it OBJ because OBJ, remember, the ball was kind of behind him, and the strength of his hands, he caught it, and it ended up almost like by his lower back. That's how far the arm is extended. But this one was up there. I'd put this as a top 5 touchdown catch I've ever seen. It was impressive. And then Davante Adams, who briefly entered the concussion protocol, came back in when the Jets were up 14-10, looking to ice the game. And the Texans ran a zero blitz where they basically just played man coverage across the board and blitzed the house. And he just ran a flag route, slot fade, and just burned the corner. And Rodgers hit him in stride for about a 35-yard touchdown to put the game away. So, again, for a half, Rodgers had it going with Wilson and Adams. Breece Hall was keeping them balanced, and they looked like a real football team for one half. It looked like it was going to be another disaster after that Corley mistake at the goal line. But for one night, I will give the Jets credit as they showed some mental toughness in this win over the Houston Texans. All right, Houston falls to 6-3. Let's get to them now. Not the end of the world. Short week, road game. They just lost Diggs. Nico Collins returns next week. So this isn't some catastrophic loss. But I do think there are some things that are noteworthy with Houston. They've been winning games recently, but they've kind of been squeaking by, right? This is the last 5 weeks or 6 weeks for the Texans. So they started 2-0. Week 3, they lose to the Vikings 34-7. They then beat the Jags 24-20, snuck by them. They were 0-for at the time. Snuck by the Bills 23-20. Good team, so it's a good win. Blew out the Patriots. Lost to the Packers. Snuck by the Colts last week 23-20. And remember, Anthony Richardson just got benched. He completed less than 30% of his passes. If Joe Flacco starts that game, the Colts probably win. And then tonight, they only score 6 points in the second half, 13 points total. And CJ Stroud, who I really like, I think he's absolutely a franchise quarterback, for sure a top 10 guy. He's not playing like a top 10 guy right now. And look, that's okay. This guy leapfrogged into elite status as a rookie, which is rare. He never looked like a rookie. Recently, he's kind of looked like a rookie. 3 of the last 4 games, he's got less than 200 passing yards. Tonight, he was 11 for 30 for 191 yards. He got sacked 8 times. A lot of that's on the offensive line. A few other times, he spun out of a pocket and kind of ran into a sack. So I do think their O-line has issues. Tunsil has had a ton of penalties this year and has not played as well. At right tackle, what's his name? Bowser, he's not very good. Kenyon Green got hurt again. So they have issues. Clearly, this is not just Stroud is regressing big time. I think he's just in a little bit of a funk. But we can't put it all on the offensive line. He's missing some throws. He airmailed some guys. missed some crossers, which is usually his bread and butter, that intermediate range, overthrew some deep shots. So, look, again, it's not the end of the world. The Jets defense played like we expected it to play this year, which we haven't seen much of, especially since they fired Saleh. But tonight, the Jets defense was good. But Stroud's in a bit of a funk, and that's okay. It happens. He's a young player. They're still 6-3. Like, you'd rather have your young, talented quarterback be in a funk and you're still mostly winning games. It's just now, if you're Houston, you got to bounce back. You can't let this linger into a 2 or 3 week funk. And look, you play the Lions at home next week in a primetime audience Sunday Night Football. So, like, that is going to be a challenge. Luckily, after that, very winnable games at Dallas. They're struggling. Titans at home, at Jacksonville, Dolphins at home. So that's a 4 or 5 week stretch where you got some winnable games. At the Chiefs right before Christmas, Baltimore at home, and then at Titans. So other than at Chiefs, Ravens at home, and then next week against Detroit, rest of those games are pretty winnable. If you win most of those, still going to be a 11 win team probably. Like, this feels like a 10, 11 win team. I will say, after tonight and after the last few weeks, this doesn't feel like a 13 win team. Like, it felt like for a while, like, they might just go 13-4 and just cruise to the AFC South. I think the Colts going to Flacco kind of tells you that they're not punting on this division. So it's still a 2-team division after tonight, in my opinion. The only thing I think the Colts are regretting is not going to Flacco last week. And that game was never out of reach. And if they probably just start Flacco in the second half or even in the fourth quarter, they probably win that game. They only lost 23-20 to Houston. So if you're the Texans, be grateful you've played the Colts both times and swept them. That's what's going to make it tough on Indy. They've already gotten swept by the Colts or by the Texans, but Houston in a bit of a funk. I thought the defense did not look good in the second half tonight. I don't know what happened. Give the Jets credit, but not a good performance from D'Amico's crew after halftime. And I get it. No Will Anderson, guys are banged up, but they just didn't show much resistance at all in the second half, which can't make D'Amico happy. It doesn't help that Kymie Fairbairn missed 2 field goals tonight. One was 56, I get it, but he makes a 43-yarder. The Jets guy has a personal foul, so it extends the drive, and then they have to settle for like a 25-yarder, and he doinks it. It's like, dude, what are you doing? One of the best kickers in the league, but just not the Texans' night. Clearly was the Jets' night. Back against the wall, had to have it. They got it. They improved to 3-6. Texans fall to 6-3. We'll see where both of these teams go from here. All right, that's going to do it for our Thursday night football reaction on 4 Verts. Hit that subscribe button if you want more NFL and college football content. My name is Harrison Graham. Enjoy your weekend. We'll see you guys soon.